Hello everybody, welcome back to 2CTV with the latest update, this time from the Middle East and the new Syria, led by a bunch of Islamist nutters. Ladies and gentlemen, things are not looking too good for Christians in the country. They've been abandoned, they are being forced to live in an Islamic way. And of course, the Western side, we're going to talk about the Americans in this video as well, because they are betraying the Christians and even the Kurds, who the Americans are supposed to be supporting. There is so much to cover in this video. Of course, if you're watching this live, we will get a reaction during the live show. So, the interesting thing about what's been going on now in Syria, the fall of Assad became instantly inevitable, which is quite fascinating considering that the last 10 years or so, it was essentially game over. He had won. But he forgot to actually completely eliminate all the threats. And when this happened, when HTS, the Tahrir al-Sham, backed by Erdogan in Turkey, took over, Christians obviously still celebrated, depending on what part of Syria they were from. Because if they were already towards the eastern side, they knew they could be relatively safe because you got the pro-democracy Syrians there, the Kurds, SDF are there to protect them. But we knew that the celebrations from the Christian side is going to be short-lived. What we are now seeing is Sharia, the Islamic law, is being implemented now officially in the constitution of New Syria. Churches are being targeted. Christmas has been cancelled and banned this year in Syria. And we're going to talk about the reaction from the West because it's absolutely disgusting. First things first. They have now said churches in Syria have been instructed not to hold Christmas celebrations, parades, or even display St. Nicholas. So that's the first step. Now, despite the fact that the Islamists in charge of New Syria, just like the Taliban in Afghanistan, came out with their propaganda saying, don't worry guys, this New Syria is for everybody. Don't worry, we're not going to do anything crazy. We knew that was going to be nonsense anyway, it was all BS. Now they've already started. Not only they banned Christmas, it goes further than that. This is where it gets very, very dangerous, what's happening. So Sharia is being implemented as we speak, which means they are forcing everybody, whether they're Christian or just atheists or whatever they are, they will have to be forced to live in an Islamic way and they will be monitored. Let's quickly go to this video, the announcement by the HTS leaders about Sharia being implemented.
الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله معز الفاتحين وناصر المستضعفين. الحمد لله الذي صدقنا وعده وهنا القصر العدلي بحلب بين أيدي أبناء الثورة والمجاهدين. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي دخلناه رافعين الرأس. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن نقيم أحكام شريعته في هذه المدينة الغراء. الآن سوف يجري إن شاء الله استلام القصر العدلي من الأخوة ومتابعة الأعمال والقيام إن شاء الله على الاستلام بشكل كامل بإذن الله عز وجل والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Interesting that they are very much obsessed with always focusing on, God willing, right? Well, not God, but they're Allah. But it's actually them doing it. So the disgusting part about this is that we've tolerated this ideology since the 6th century way too much. And I'm talking about the last few decades, where it has not been challenged properly. It has just about started to get challenged because of the rise of the internet, social media, new media. Over the last few years, Islam is finally getting challenged, but not by our leaders. That is the next step, and that's what a lot of people are waiting for and hoping for. But for now, Christians, again, this is not really just about Syria. We've seen what's going on with Christians in Nigeria and other places as well. The war on Christianity continues, and they are completely defenseless at this point. Now, these idiots who've been going around destroying churches, burning Bibles and everything else, for example, the likes of the Al-Qaeda types and ISIS types and HTS sides, they've been doing it for a long time anyway. And some of you are already familiar with their disgusting work. Over the last few years, they've been going around burning all these churches, destroying the ISIS flag, obviously, in this video. We've had this happening in Syria. We've had this happening in Iraq. We've had this happening in parts of Lebanon. And they kind of stopped eventually, the Hezbollah side. But this continues. until the international community say we have to focus on values again. Because until the French Revolution, people were not really, there was no real concept of just nationality or nationalism. People would describe themselves in terms of their identity, each individual, based on the area they're from, for example, what county or whatever you are, what tribe you're part of, and they would identify as what values they had. So they would say, I'm a Christian from, I don't know, Sussex, for example. I'm an Anglican, or I'm a Catholic, or whatever, from different parts of Germany, or whatever you are. Christians must be supported by other Christians. That should be common sense. So it doesn't matter if you're Nigerian or Syrian. If the United States of America claims to be Christian, if England, with its church, which is the Church of England, being part of the Constitution, it's a Christian state. If they claim to be Christian, why are they not supporting other Christians? That's where the question should go towards the other leaders. This is going to continue. And we're going to talk about the betrayal by the US Democrats and the Biden administration as well. Before we do that, the backlash continues, the fight back continues. The Kurds are fighting back, the SDF and the other pro-democracy side. So they're hitting back anyway, but it's a little bit difficult to see how they could actually be, at the end of the day, successful. Let's quickly go to the video we have from the SDF forces. So, as I said, the fight back is happening. There's not much support. The reason we say that is despite, publicly speaking, out there, the Americans and the Western side saying, oh yeah, of course we support the pro-democracy side, of course we support the Kurds, for example, and yeah, we will safeguard the Christians. Are not doing any of that, abandon them completely. We now have a new indication. Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State in the United States of America, for the next month, 2 months now actually, well no, a month actually, for the next 4 or 5 weeks, this man is still in charge of the State Department. The policy is now to remove Tahrir al-Sham from the terrorist list. It's been already designated as a terrorist organization, but because they're now in charge of this new Syria, the American side, instead of still saying we do not recognize this new Syria, they've said, fine, we're going to recognize your legitimacy. What about the rest of the Syrians who have not given consent? How can you recognize this new Syria and support the same terrorist organizations that you consider as terrorists and Islamists? The US has also said that it will support the new Syrian leaders who protect women and renounce terrorism. Are they? That's what the American side, that's what the Biden administration said about the Taliban in Afghanistan. They said, well, the new leaders of Afghanistan reassured us that they're going to be different, they're going to be reformed, they're going to be respecting women's rights, for example. What happened? This new Taliban is worse than what you had in the 1990s. It's absolutely disgusting. Same thing's going to happen with Tahrir al-Sham. Get back to your values. You claim to be Christians. Do you actually care about the values? Do you actually care about the real threat to the global order? They don't care because they have different priorities. It's going to continue like this unless we have other leaders. And again, from January onwards, in America, we are going to have a different president. We are going to have a different leadership. But America is just one country. Yes, America leads in the world. But America is still just one country. Canada will change eventually soon. Justin Castro Trudeau will be out. Poilievre will be Prime Minister. The Conservatives will be in charge of Canada. France, there is an opportunity for the right-wingers to take over eventually from Macron. Still have to wait. Patience is needed. The Dutch leadership, the coalition, are trying to be different. But it's not really just about what's happening inside each country. Patriots, those who believe in the overall Judeo-Christian values, whether you're Jewish or Christian, have to be supported, and they have to support each other, because it goes beyond nationality. Nationalists must support other nationalists. We've been isolated for way too long. The enemy work on an international level. The globalists, they don't care about borders. That's the whole point. They support each other. Biden will support Starmer. It's by default. We must support patriots and nationalists, whether they are in Japan, whether they are in Argentina, or whether they are in Denmark. That's the point. Right now, I think this is just the beginning of the dark times ahead. But people must be aware, they must be informed, and they must be on standby. Yes, it's depressing. Yes, it's full of doom and gloom. You cannot hide from reality. You cannot run away from reality. You can't just close your eyes and say, well, I can't really focus anymore. I can't really listen to this anymore. It's happening around you. It's going to get worse. Only by being informed and respecting the values that created the Western civilization and basic civility and our rights and our freedoms, only by doing that, we can just about start to be hopeful again, to be optimistic again. And we can hopefully push for better politicians, better political leaders, cultural leaders, and movements. Let's get some reaction what we heard from the live chat. Let's go to some super chats first, then I go get some non-super chats as well. Nina, thank you, Nina. Saying, and this is what they are trying to do here. The thing is, this is not a conspiracy theory, because Nina is spot on. We've already had them publicly saying that we will not stop until we plant the black flag of Islam on top of Downing Street and on top of Buckingham Palace and on top of the White House. It's public policy. It's been there since the 7th century. And we still have people in our societies that at best, they are still burying their heads in the sand and essentially allowing the traitors in our political leadership to betray us. Daniel says, thank you to the CIA and their BS regime, I think, changing crap. Just took a bad situation and made it much worse. And PC says, Maya, I saw outside Barclays on Tottenham Court Road men shouting, Yemen, turn another ship around. Mask covering most of them. Yeah, so they're still talking about that, which is kind of interesting, because I thought the people in the West, the left-wingers who support the Islamists, They go with the trend, the latest trend. Everything has to be trendy. They didn't care about the Palestinian stuff until last year, right? And there was this period about 9 months ago, whenever it was, when the Houthis from Yemen started to cause chaos. And then they randomly came out and said, yes, Yemen, turn another ship. Firstly, the Houthis do not represent Yemen. They only occupy the tiny part of the southwestern part of the country. But I thought, because these people are idiots, and they also don't really have a good attention span. I actually thought by this point they completely would forget about Yemen and the Houthis, but they still remember, clearly. So they're still doing their chant of Yemen, turn another ship around, which means basically they want the Houthis, the terrorists in Yemen, to shoot down and sink ships that, and by the way, they were not just like military ships, Navy ships, for example. They were actually commercial ships in the West. They are shooting themselves in the foot, the Westerners, the left-wingers in the West who support the Houthis. Digital Universe says, where are the leaders of the Christian faith? I wrote a letter to the Vatican and I have had no answers back. What then is the Vatican for? That's the thing. So it seems like the Pope is too busy meeting with the Palestinian leadership, which was a couple of days ago, which is not the job of the Pope, by the way. And we forget about, for example, the national Christian leaders like the Church of England and Justin Welby, but the Pope obviously represents the Catholic movement, which is a universal part of Christianity. And the whole point of that was, firstly, the Pope was never supposed to be outspoken, They were never supposed to be seen in public until a couple of centuries ago. A lot of people didn't even know what the Pope looked like or if he says anything. But if these days, if the Pope is public, the job is to simply talk about Christianity and the Catholic faith, generally speaking. That's the point. That's your job. Your job is not to be inclusive by bringing in people who hate you and hate your religion, which is obviously the Islamic side. You got the Abrahamic religions, which is obviously Judaism and Christianity, and obviously in the Abraham and Noah. Then you got Islam. Islam pretends to be part of the Abrahamic religions. They're not. It's not. It's a political ideology based on plagiarism. They didn't even do it the right way. It's flawed massively. They claim to be part of the Abrahamic religion. It's not. It's a political ideology with a book, with a manifesto. You, as the Pope, your job is to support and defend the Abrahamic religions. That's the point. Ivan is back saying the so-called leaders of the Christians, the left, are selling out Christianity. I agree. Let's go to some non-super chats while we're here. The first one says, it's not doom and gloom for them. Why should it be for us? You have the courage to tear it down or you don't. I agree. There's been a mess, by the way, today, over the last couple of hours, because one of the migrant camps in Dunkirk in France, there was a bit of a shooting incident inside the camp. 4 people, I think, at least, have lost their lives. You actually have criminals and gangsters in migrant camps at this point also ending up killing each other and probably other random migrants and refugees. And they are ending up coming here. Or just generally speaking, the West. Because at this point, they are already in France anyway. Now, do we have any proper reaction from the political leaders saying, oh, maybe the far right had a point that inside these migrant camps, they might not be all innocent, genuine political refugees. Perhaps it's a combination of economic migrants, but also actual criminals and actual jihadists and groomers. We still don't get any of that reaction. I mean, we've seen the reaction from the Biden-Harris administration about the Mexican border. They basically said, Keir Starmer in the UK, completely, he's basically like a child, just going, la, 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 I don't want to hear. To Starmer's Labour government, apparently, Nigel Farage and Reform UK are a far-right party. Reform UK, according to the Labour Party, is far-right. Nigel Farage, far-right. Really? If Nigel is far-right, then what am I? Mussolini's great-great-great-grandchild. It's just, none of it makes sense. Let's get a couple of more comments. Neil says, doctors are killing each other. What could go wrong? Yeah, like as the narrative from the liberal media in the West is that they're all doctors and scientists and engineers, right? Yeah. Very violent doctors. Well, they're largely peaceful, but then sometimes they explode. Keir Starmer needs to be replaced now. The problem with that is that because of the political system in the UK is if you just replace him as one person as the leader, he will be replaced by another Labour person as leader and prime minister. And that's a whole different issue, by the way. It will be ideal if we could have a general election sooner than later, because I believe the consensus in the country is that we're not happy with this government, and the whole point of constitutional monarchy in the United Kingdom and the parliamentary system is because we don't have fixed terms. It's not like the US or France where president can just sit in one place for 4 years or so. We can the constitutional monarchy in the UK is the people will send a message to the Crown and Parliament that we're not happy. Please reconsider. Back in the day, the Crown, the job of the King or Queen would be to just say, okay, Prime Minister, you're out, next one. But obviously now we have more parliamentary democracy, which means instead of getting the Crown to do it, we'll just get our parliamentarians to say, okay, can we shut this down and start again? We can have an election within a year, you can have an election within 2 years, it doesn't matter. Lynn Blackburn says, Roland, January 6th. Trump is in the White House. Although, for the record, the inauguration this year is on, well, next year, 2025 is on the 20th of January, not the 6th. So yeah, January 20th, Trump is in the White House and our government will be exposed as the liars that they are. Hopefully, yep. David says, Justice, Son, Father of Judgment, Armor. David, gather for you, Lord God, living God, Christ's thoughts. Turkish barbers are probably drug dealers. But there's already been a massive investigation into a huge chunk of the new Turkish barbershops that are opening up in our cities in the UK. London, Birmingham, Manchester mainly, and other places as well. They are mostly criminal fronts. They are rackets. They either deal with drugs and obviously money laundering at the back. And it's interesting that this has been addressed. It has been mentioned, not just by the media, but also politicians. Our parliamentarians, our MPs, are not really on top of things. We focus on too much on the cabinet, the governments in general, and I'm talking about all the countries, not just the UK. Parliamentarians need to be on top of things. Your job in the House is to keep raising issues. They're not doing it. We've known about the Turkish barbers issue for a couple of years now. We've known about these, in case you don't know, in London we have these American candy shops. These are fake street shops. They just pop up out of nowhere for a few weeks, a couple of months. They close, they go somewhere else, right? They do money laundering. And they're not actually American. They're not actually owned by Americans. They are mostly South Asians, Pakistani, wherever they are. There have been exposés and investigations about this. There is no crackdown, as far as we know. Well, the police said there is a crackdown, but there's been about 3-4 years now. They still pop up around London. So the problem is here. And that's the thing. The problem is already in all our Western countries. And Australia is also in a mess. Australia, that people thought, well, that's going to be fine. That's going to be safe. That's going to be fine. They have their own strong policies. No. It's reaching that part of the world as well. What happened to Christian values and basic political leadership? Anyway, just a quick announcement in case you don't know. You might have missed it. I don't blame you. We today, actually it was supposed to be tomorrow, but it's actually happened today. We have published our new 2C TV Plus show, The Decline of Western Education. It's a short documentary with an exclusive interview with Catherine Bilbal-Singh. She's the toughest hit mistress in the United Kingdom. And she talks about the decline of the Western education in general and how it happened and who is responsible and how we can fix it. Definitely go watch that. It's now available exclusively on 2C TV Plus. You can watch that by going on 2c.tv. You can also find the link in the description. It'll be great if you could please go and watch it and give me your feedback. Hopefully it will be informative, educational and everything else. It'll be great to obviously share these things for people to be more aware than they are Now, I do believe there is one final, there's a couple of them actually, more super chats. Yes, one of them is Quran as toilet paper. It was too harsh for it, too dry. Where is the outrage of the mainstream media for the plight of Syrians? Oh, yes. They don't care, by the way. They are only a few million in number worldwide nowadays because of Islamism. They never care when indigenous Christians die. Yes, I agree. I mean, there's no urgency. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Go check out the decline of Western education on 2C TV Plus by going on 2C.tv. I'm Maya 2C, and we are the media.